One of the odd jobs I did after graduating college was working for a clothing company designing, among other things, bras. It was actually pretty mundane, and like many other jobs, it mostly consisted of a lot of boring meetings. But there was one project that I'll never forget. It was supposed to be some revolutionary new design, something that would change the way women thought about their undergarments. Or at least, that's how our team lead tried to sell it to us. Little did I know that it would also change my life forever. The design ended up being pretty complex, with delicate lace and intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change in the light. But it wasn't until the first prototype was finished that I began to notice something strange. The bra almost seemed to have a life of its own, the lace moving and swirling as if it were alive, and then the whispers started. At first, I thought I was just imagining things, but as the days passed, the whispers grew louder and more insistent. I couldn't tell what they were talking about, but they seemed to be speaking to me, calling me by name. For the longest time I tried to ignore them and to keep focusing on my work, but it was no use. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, until they were all I could hear, and then, one night, they came for me. I woke to find myself in a dark, shadowy place, surrounded by monsters. Their eyes were empty, their movements jerky and unnatural, and they spoke with the same whispers that had haunted me for so long. They told me they were the spirits of people who had become trapped in the building where I worked, and somehow they managed to use the bra to communicate to me. They had also been driven mad, and they wanted me to join them. I tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The shadowy figures closed in on me, the whispers growing louder and more insistent. And then, just as I thought all hope was lost, I woke up. I was back in my office, the prototype bra lying on my desk. I looked around, but there were no sign of the shadowy monsters. Had it all been a dream? Was this some kind of omen or hallucination? But then, as I looked down at the bra, I saw that the lace was still moving, still alive, and then I knew that it had been real. I quit that job that day, and I never looked back. But sometimes, late at night, I can still hear those whispers calling my name. And I know that, whatever those things were, they're still out there somewhere. My neighborhood has some really good walking trails by it, and I commonly visit them after work and on weekends to clear my head. One time, I think it was a Thursday evening, I was walking and randomly came across a bra. Little did I know what was about to happen. As I walked along the trail, I noticed something white and lacy lying on the ground. It was a bra, just lying there, as if someone had dropped it. I looked around, but there was no one else in sight. I picked it up, a bit curious, and as soon as my fingers touched the fabric, I felt a chill run down my spine. It was hard to describe, but it almost seemed like the bra was alive, pulsing with some kind of energy. I dropped it back on the ground, but it was too late. I had already touched it. That night, I had the strangest dream. I was standing in a dark, shadowy place, surrounded by monsters. It almost resembled the trail, but not quite. Furthermore, the monsters were whispering, chanting something I couldn't quite make out, and then one of them turned to me and said, "You have been chosen." When I woke up, I tried to shake off the dream, but it stayed with me all day, and then, that night, the whispers started. I could hear them in my head, calling my name, telling me to come back to the trail. At first I tried to ignore them, but they only grew louder and more insistent. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to go back, just to see if I was crazy or not. When I got to the spot where I had found the bra, it was still there, just lying on the ground. For some reason I picked it up again, and this time the whispers grew even louder and more urgent. Before I could even throw it back down, I felt a surge of power, of energy. It seemed like I was connected with the monsters in some way, and I knew that I was one of them now. My warning to you is, if you ever find a bra on a trail, a white lacy bra that seems to pulse with energy, leave it be. Leave it where it is and walk away. Because once you touch it, eventually you'll become one of us, and then there's no going back. Let me start by saying that I never thought a simple art project could lead to such terror. It all began when I decided to create a unique sculpture for my final art project. I wanted to make something that would really stand out, something that would make people stop and stare. So somehow, in my weird mind, I chose to create a giant bra. The process was tedious, and I spent countless hours molding the wire and fabric into the perfect shape. I added intricate details and patterns, making sure every inch was perfect. Finally, after weeks of hard work, my masterpiece was complete. That night, I took a step back to admire my work. It was really stunning, I thought, and I couldn't wait to present it to my class the next day. But as I turned off the lights and headed to bed, a strange feeling washed over me. I felt as though I was being watched, as though there were eyes in the darkness. The next morning, I woke up to find that the sculpture had moved. It was no longer in the center of the room where I had left it, but instead, it was now in the corner, facing the door. I shook my head, convinced that I must have moved it in my sleep, but as the day went on, strange things began to happen. My classmates would whisper and point at the sculpture, claiming that it had moved, and then, one by one, they began to disappear. It was as if the sculpture was sucking the life out of them, draining their energy and leaving them as empty shells. I knew I had to destroy it to put an end to the madness, but as I approached the sculpture, I could feel its power and its presence. It was somehow alive, and it wanted to consume me too. In a moment of desperation, I grabbed a hammer and began to smash the sculpture into little pieces. But as each piece fell to the ground, I could feel the life draining from my body. I was becoming one of them, one of the empty shells. As the last piece of the sculpture fell, I collapsed to the ground, my vision fading to black. And then, I heard it. It was a whisper in the darkness, a voice that chilled me to the bone. "Thank you," it said. "You have given me life." And with that, I knew that I had created something far more powerful, far more terrifying than I ever could have imagined. I had created a monster, and it had consumed me whole.